Real story here. Well, this isn't a story. This is just my notebook because I need to make sure my thoughts are lined up. Now, this information I've gotten is from the nationalreview.com. And there are plenty of other websites that write articles like this just with different authors. Um, Now, this is related to a hearing with Representative Nancy Mace. She's talking to Vihaya Gaddy. I know that's how she pronounced it in the video, so that's why I'm getting it right. She's a legal officer and a secretary for Twitter. She's a chief legal officer, so that means there are other legal officers working under her. And legal officers basically make sure that the company's legal affairs fall within compliance with the law. And a secretary, well, she's just a human planner, really. Let's hear a little bit about what they talk about so far.
The Twitter files reveal this tweet was deemed false information because it ran contrary to the CDC. So my first question this morning of Ms. Gaddy, may I ask of you, where did you go to medical school?
I did not go to medical school.
I'm sorry?
I did not go to medical school.
That's what I thought. Why do you think you or anyone else at Twitter had the medical expertise to censor a doctor's expert opinion?
Our policies regarding COVID were designed to protect individuals. We were seeing
You guys censored Harvard-educated doctors, Stanford-educated doctors, doctors that are educated in the best places in the world, and you silenced those voices.
Twitter was probably the number one social media platform for a little while, and this Gaddy over here is a legal officer, a chief legal officer. And I mean, pandemics don't happen that often, but you would think that she would have some experience with misinformation. Or is it because the government was controlling information having to do with vaccines was something that's new? So maybe that's why she's never been in a position like this before.
My next question is, did the U.S. government, I have another chart I want to show you, Ms. Gaddy. I have another tweet by someone with a following of a full 18,000 followers. This person put a chart from the CDC on Twitter. It's the CDC's own data, so it's accurate by your standards. And you all labeled this as misleading. You're not a doctor, right, Ms. Gaddy?
No, I'm not.
Okay. What makes you think you or anyone else at Twitter have the medical expertise to censor actual, accurate CDC data?
I'm not familiar with these particular situations.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not. But this is what Twitter did. They labeled this as inaccurate. It is the government's own data. It's ridiculous that we're even having to have this conversation today. It's not just about the laptop. This is about medical advice that expert doctors were trying to give Americans because social media companies like Twitter were silencing their voices.
Now, here are some of the tweets that they talk about. Well, not tweets, but experts that spread information that Twitter flagged as information. One of them actually gets permanently suspended, but we're going to talk about Dr. Kulldorff. His name sounds like a Harry Potter character. He works at a medical school at Harvard. He's an epidemiologist. Which they basically study the patterns and causes of disease and injury. And whatever it is he posted got flagged as misinformation by a moderator on Twitter. Whether or not it was a human or a bot, we don't know, or they don't really talk about in this 5-minute clip here. Another one, Andrew Bostom, he's a Rhode Island physician, and he actually stated an opinion or sent a tweet that cited information that is used by the CDC or was posted by the CDC. And he still had 5 violations, only one of which was actually legitimate, because I'm assuming that he tried appealing to all of them. And only one of those violations was valid, because even though he used legitimate info, it spread contradicting narratives basically to the public health officials or the CDC. And the info basically had to do with how the flu virus affected children. Now, Gaddy is paid about close to $8 million of a salary. I don't know about the people under her, but you would think that as a chief legal officer, she would either physically or tell someone below her to, go and look at information before flagging anything as misinformation, especially when it has to do with a doctor or an expert that cites info from the CDC themselves. But as you can see, none of that mattered because she was being forced by governments around the world to take down certain information. Now, thank God Elon Musk bought the site and released the Twitter files, or the person that released 40 Twitter files. His name was David Zweig. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but if this isn't proof that they're moderating or controlling or curating a certain plate on the information that they want to feed to U.S. citizens. So we form an opinion and a narrative and spread that to the people around us so that we make certain choices. I don't know what else is. Like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I actually think that vaccines had a positive impact on humanity. Probably not as a whole. Like, it's not 100% effective, but we're getting somewhere in terms of the technology that we have regarding vaccines. Nobody can say that it hasn't been beneficial, but at least give people a choice to have and attain information based on these vaccines so that we just don't get what they want us to know. And then whoop-de-doo, we get poked by needles. And, now it's coming out, information's coming out later on how the vaccines by certain corporations actually was the cause of blood clots. We're not even done finding out information on how a lot of the vaccines cause certain negative health defects in people later on down the line. So all I'm trying to say is do your research, especially when it comes to putting these chemicals in your bodies. Man, I got the vaccine. I got Pfizer, and I'm healthy as far as I can tell. But I won't know until later on down the line. One of my kidneys might fail. Or all I'm trying to say is that social media, these people, BlackRock, Vanguard, you can go up the line up to them and then come down. And it's all these people who are wealthy enough to have shares of these companies bought out to where they could tell them what type of information to release out to the public. And so we make certain choices that benefit them. And in this aspect, it just has to do with vaccines. You could say, well, how does us having a narrative over vaccines help them? Well, at one point you have to pay for vaccines. I'm pretty sure a lot of these companies are being funded to develop vaccines and profit off of them. So that's putting money in somebody's pockets. So, I mean, if that's not a good incentive to form a narrative and feed that to the people, I don't know what else is. Money is the root of all evil. And I'm not even that religious, spiritual, studying religion, but you can't say that what they're doing, what these people are doing for money can't be considered somewhat malicious.
I have another question, my last one for you, Miss Gaddy. Did the U.S. government ever contact you or anyone at Twitter to pressure Twitter to moderate or censor certain tweets? Yes or no?
We have a program.
Did the U.S. government ever contact you or anyone at Twitter to censor or moderate certain tweets? Yes or no?
We receive legal demands to remove content from the platform from the U.S. government and governments all around the world. Those are published on a third-party website, and anyone can review
Thank
them.
God for Matt Taibbi. Thank God for Elon Musk for allowing to show us in the world that Twitter was basically a subsidiary of the FBI, censoring real medical voices with real expertise that put real Americans' lives in danger because they didn't have that information. I also want to thank one of my colleagues, Rokana, because as it turns out, censorship isn't just an important issue to conservatives. Some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, like Ro, found this censorship very concerning, and even wrote to you and to folks at Twitter that he was concerned about the First Amendment being censored. So I want to thank him for speaking up and speaking out about this issue, because this should not be a partisan issue. This should be an issue that's an American issue. Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record, I ask unanimous consent, to enter into the record a Wall Street Journal article from December 9th, 2022 by Justin Hart entitled "The Twitter Blacklisting of Jay Bhattacharya." Enter the record, please, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, and I yield back.